What's up? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Servida, and today we're going to talk about 808s. Okay, so about a year ago I made an 808 tutorial, and during that time I've learned a lot since then. So I thought it would be fun to give you guys a refresher and show you all the new things I learned. But before I show you the 808s, we have to make a quick beat first. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Keep it simple. 1, 2, 1, 2. Like that. Da, 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 da. A little this. Da 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 da. Okay, that's all we're doing. Let's just do a quick little melody. Let's do Sakura today. Reverb, no. Oh, it's like strings, but it's kind of grimy. There, except not all over the place. Let's export that. Ooh, you know what'd be cool if we made it unique, bring it up an octave, and then we put little altar boy on it. But then we just bring it down back in octave. It's like ugly, but in a good way. That sounds nice too. Okay, I'm getting too caught up in the beat. I forgot this is an 808 tutorial. So I'm gonna break this tutorial down into 3 levels, starting from simple to most complex. But before we do any of that, there's a couple things we have to do to our 808s before we program them. Okay, so we have an 808 here. The first thing we have to do is right click and go to cut itself. So just listen to me play a major scale. And now I'm gonna toggle on cut itself and hear it again. So what it's doing is when a new note plays, the previous note turns off automatically. So we're getting rid of muddiness from overlapping notes. The second thing you want to do is go to your sample and manipulate the ADSR. So you're turning down everything except the hold, which you are turning up all the way. So what it's saying is when I press an 808, as soon as I let go, it turns off immediately. Like that. As opposed to if I have the sustain and release up a bit, there's going to be a long decay. Like that. Okay, let's get into level 1, which would be the simplest 808s. Normally, people in level 1 would use short 808s like this, as opposed to long ones like this. Now, if you don't have a short 808 sample, you can always take a long one and move the out knob up like this. In level 1, the 808s are used pretty sparingly, and a lot of people like to layer them on top of the kicks. And the reason we layer our kick with the 808 is so we get the initial punch from the kick, and the 808 comes in right after. In this drum pattern, there's 2 kicks going right there. So we're going to just put it right on top of that. So now we have our rhythm for the 808s, but what note should we play? It's good to keep the 808s in the same scale, but you will get the best results if your 808s follow your chord progression. So now that you see our chord progression here, we're going to use this as a guideline for our 808s. Since we're still in level 1, which is the simplest 808s, it's best to go for the root note of the chord. If you don't know what the root note of the chord is, the easiest way to remember is just the name of the chord. If my chord is C major, the root note is C. If my chord is F major, the root note is F. The quality of the chord, whether it's major or minor, doesn't matter. If it's E minor, the root note is E. If it's E major, the root note is still E. So as long as you know the name of the chord, you will have the root note. So let's figure out our chord progression. Our first chord looks like an E minor. So we're moving the C up to an E, like this. We have another 808 at this area, so let's line it up with our chord progression. You can see we have an A minor 6th, which the root note is A. So we just move this up like this. So now that we have the root notes, let's hear it. Sounds great. Hitting the root note with the 808 is always going to sound really good. Even though there's no kick drum here, let's put another 808 here. Really just trusting our ears. In terms of the chord, let's stick to the root note again. This is E minor. So let's go back down to here. Okay, good. Let's get into level 2, which is a bit more complex now. Now, instead of a short sustained 808 like this, we are going to use a much longer one like this. Now for level 2, we're still using the foundations of level 1, but we're going to make the 808 a bit more melodic. So this is pretty much what we had from level 1, and we're going to elevate this a bit more. One thing we can do is passing notes. So let's say we want to go to this A here. We can put a little note right behind it, And I know we're still in E minor, so let's just keep it in E like that. And you know, it might sound better if we have more kicks in it. So let's put a kick layered right on top of it like that. Let's do something a bit more interesting before we go back to the first bar. So we're here at the end of the bar and the chord is E minor, but this is where we're gonna start straying away from the root notes. So what I'm gonna do is actually cut it in half, and we're gonna do a C and then a B. Now the reason this B works is because it's still part of the E minor chord, which is the 5th. And the reason the C works is because it's part of the scale and it acts as a passing note to the B. You know, this could also be effective if we move this down to the A. In level 2, we can start playing around with octaves, so normally everything is near the same area, but now we can move this up and see what happens. It's important to know that the high frequencies stand out a lot more than the low ones, so if you're going up, just turn the velocity down a bit. We can also start to incorporate slides into our 808s. If you want to make a slide, it takes 2 notes. It takes a regular note and a slide note. Now, the regular note will tell you your starting point, and the slide note will tell you the point you are going to. Let's say I want to go up an octave, so we have our starting note, which is normal. We go to our slide, we click an octave right above it. Now, if you look at the duration of the note, the slide will be complete when it hits the end here. So if I sustain this a lot more, the slide will end right here. And if I bring it in even earlier, the slide will be even quicker. Also, the hotkey is S to toggle your slides. So let's turn these notes into slides. So I'm going to delete them, toggle the slide key on like that. And we're going to have the starting note to be this bottom E like this. So let's hear this now. Now you don't really hear the note, so what I'm going to do is shorten it like this. Okay, so now we're going to get into level 3, and level 3 is just craziness. Now in level 3, the 808 is the star of the show, it's the foreground, so now we can get really crazy and creative with it. In this level, there's nothing really wrong as long as it sounds good, so I'm just gonna show you a bunch of stuff that I learned. The first thing we can do is panning, so let's go back to these slides again. We'll go into our pan settings, and we're gonna do one hard left and hard right like that. By the way, when the 808 starts to get really busy, I suggest you just turn off some of the drums. You can do an 808 delay. I did this in one of my rap songs a few months ago. So I want the delay to be on this note here. I'm going to do that. Press it like that. We're going to turn the velocity down like that so it sounds like a delay. I'm going to transition into it like that. I don't know what to call this one, but the homie Oh Gosh Leota showed me this one, so we're gonna pick a spot right there. Okay, so the chord we have is E minor, so we're gonna pick a note in that chord. So let's do this. We're gonna go to Alt U, which is the chopper tool, like that. Accept, and then we're gonna turn the velocity up like that. You can also do some fun panning with it. Let's do like a left to right sweep. Let's try the G. Another simple thing we can do is a bass drop, so it's just an 808 slide going downwards. So we can just pick a random note like this. So let's have it go down an octave like that. And it's best to turn the velocity down because it's kind of muddy in that area. Another thing we can do is a reverse 808. So let's pick this spot right here. So what we're going to do is pick a note. So we're going to create a slide note there. And we're also going to create a normal note. With this normal note, we're turning the velocity all the way down, and we're going to layer it right on top of the other note. So what it's doing is it's playing the muted note first, and then it's sliding into the note being played. Also, the muted note doesn't have to start at the exact same place. You can do multiple reverse 808s to create kind of like a wobble bass. So let's just have it like this. Something like this. Level 3 is all about being creative and experimenting. Why don't we put like a guitar amp on the 808 and then automate it? Wait, that'd be kind of nasty. Okay, so we get rid of this. I'm not really sure what I'm doing anymore, but this is the fun of it. Now we get a guitar amp. Okay, this one is clean. Automate like that. Has to be normal before it gets back. So let's kind of make it just swell up and down like that. This might not work, but at least we're trying. Last thing we have to talk about is how to mix these 808s. For mixing 808s, it's really important to sidechain. As we talked about before, we're layering our kicks on top of the 808s, so they're really fighting for the same area. So we're gonna program it so when the kick comes in, the volume of the 808s is gonna go down. Once the kick goes away, it's gonna come back up. In order to do this, we need 3 mixer tracks. So one is going to be for our 808, one is going to be for our kick, and one is going to be our sidechain. The kick is going to be sidechain to this track, and the 808 is going to be route to this track only. In Fruity Limiter, instead of limit, we go to compressor here. We're going to right click the sidechain here and go to our kick. And now we're gonna move our threshold and our ratio down. Trust your ears on this one. There's a few plugins I like to use on my 808. My favorite one is FabFilter Saturn at this warm tape preset. If you don't have that plugin, no worries. There's this thing called Saturation Knob, which is free. If you don't have that either, a good stock one is the Fruity Blood Overdrive. To mess with these 2 knobs a bit. But the most important thing you have to know is what's appropriate for what scenario. For example, having all of these 808s like this is way too much, it's way too busy. But I showed you everything so that you can pick and choose your favorites and put them in your track. It's also important to know the situation you're in as well. If you're making a beat for least, level 1 and level 2 work well. If you're making a beat tape or an instrumental, go crazy on level 3. Thank you so much for watching the video, hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what other tutorials you want to see next, and I'll see you guys soon. If you have any suggestions, leave a comment. If you like this video, leave a like. If you really like this video, subscribe. If you didn't like this video, leave. Just leave. Get out of here.